You're watching Fox 17 News, Nashville in Focus.
Happy Sunday morning, everybody. I'm Scott Couch. I will be your host for the next half hour as we discuss politics. I've got 2 Republicans, 2 Democrats, and a lot of topics to cover. You may have heard there's a presidential election on Tuesday, U.S. Senate race, some congressional races, a really big referendum in Nashville. Around the Middle Tennessee area, there are a number of communities that have liquor by the drink referendums that are expected to generate a lot of traffic. So we're looking for a lot of folks who haven't already voted to get out there. Let me introduce our guests and we'll get into it. Steve Gill, local attorney and a conservative radio and television host. Jasper Hendricks on that side with him, Democratic strategist, chair of the Metro Fair Board. Victoria Pierce, a GOP strategist, and Dakota Galban, who is the chair of the Davidson County Democratic Party. Guys, thank you so much. And let's wade in with a statewide topic, and we're certainly going to talk about early voting and the Metro election as well. But state budget process begins next week when lawmakers get together with the money people, and we try to decide how much money we think we're going to have so that we could begin to draft a budget to make it happen. At the top of the governor's list, as it was last year, is an effort to reintroduce a voucher bill, perhaps a new voucher bill. All the different parties that are interested supposedly have been working on it. I'm told they are close. Steve, what are you hearing on that front? On the GOP side, they control both the House, the Senate, and the governor's office at the moment.
I think the governor keeps saying they're close, but they've been close time and time again. I think it remains to be seen. You've got a lot of new legislators that are going to come in. I don't think y'all are going to pick up as much as you hope, but the new ones that we're picking up are a lot less supportive of the voucher plan than I think the governor thinks. I think it's going to be a tough road, and hopefully we won't pass a bill that gives money to people whose kids are already in private school. About 85% of the money from his voucher plan will go to people whose kids are already in private school. That's not going to lift education in Tennessee, and I would urge legislators to listen to the folks back home and come in ready to say no.
Well, you're taking Jasper's talking points. I saw them evaporating as you were going. Well, no, Sorry about that, sir.
Well, no, because it's just really going to depend on when they decide to call this special session.
Do you think there will be one?
There are a couple of options that I see that they can do, which is have a session right after the election. That's one option. The second option is wait until January and then do reorg and then have a special session within the session. So that way,
just for this bill, so we only talk about this bill.
So we can just talk about this bill because there's still $144 million that's on the table that's in the current budget that the governor allocated for this program
and couldn't be spent on anything else.
Right, it can't be spent on anything else. So if he wants to utilize this $144 million, I think he's going to have to do it before they begin their budget discussions for the next budget. So it just depends on how. That's what's going to determine when they're going to bring this up. So it may be before the new people get in.
Which is, again, part of, if he thinks that new people coming in aren't going to be as supportive, he may want to try to get a rush to judgment.
Right, and to get the people who've been, sort of reelected,
and paid by the lobbyists.
Right, and then they'll go from there.
Victoria, what are you hearing? What are you seeing? What do you think about the prospect of a new bill?
So I've been talking to a bunch of guys on the Hill, and from what I'm hearing is no special session. They're going to just wait till January. But then that does arrive with the question of all right, you got these new people coming in. Where do they stand? So I know right now that the governor's working around the clock, talking with everyone currently about this. So I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens, honestly.
Yeah, I know where Davidson County stands on it. How about you? What do you think? What do you hear?
He's agreeing with me for the first time ever.
I love this topic.
I knew you would. You get to bat clean
up. Get along about this, but I think we can all agree that public tax dollars should be spent on public schools. And so I don't see this happening for the governor. I think it's an odd thing for him to, use like his political capital for. I just don't see it materializing.
Well, the question is,
there's the money there already in the budget.
You mean that $144 million?
Yes, 140. And I just feel like that is something that we're going to go back to. Like, we already have this money designated for this. Why are we not going to push through with the voucher bill? I just think it could go back to that.
Except that states who have done this have found that it costs 3, 4, and 5 times more than they claim on the front end.
True.
So Tennessee, kind of like Arizona and others, is going to find out, oh, wait, it's suddenly an $800 billion budget, or $800 million budget buster.
One thing that, if he really wants to increase his political capital is maybe using this $144 million and turning it into a grant program to help the people of East Tennessee that have been that have been struggling with in the aftermath of the hurricane.
Give it back to the state.
Like give it to them and let them rebuild. Instead of creating this loan program that he's proposing to use Medicaid money to where people have to pay it back. If we have this rainy day fund and we have these resources, we are a state that supposed to be into volunteerism and and all that good stuff. Why not give the people the money versus having to make them pay it back?
Do you think the East Tennessee lawmakers, obviously who have a seat at the table, most of them are members of the GOP, are going to be pushing the governor to do that?
I think they are, and I think that what they're stuck at right now is that somehow some people believe that the best thing to do is to use Medicaid money, to provide this loan program, when that is not the purpose of these funds. And we actually really do have a rainy day fund. And guess what? It rained, which is what caused this problem. And so I think that where they're stuck at is that, you have people that are trying to shepherd them into this direction in which they need to go another direction, which is create a grant program for people, utilizing, rainy day funds or this $144 million that, is not going to be used. Because even if they push it through now, how are they going to spend $144 million in the matter of just, a couple of months?
Well, and this was last year's budget money. So they're
Yes,
going
it
into a
is.
new
True,
budget.
right.
So why are you stealing last year's $144 million? Just allocate $144 million now.
Well, to his
and
point,
help the people.
potentially the money's there. And just so you know, before we head to break, Cam Sexton has also joined 5 other counterparts from around the Southeast to ask the feds for block grant money for this purpose. Let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk more politics here on Nashville in Focus.
I'll be interested.
You're watching Fox 17 News, Nashville in Focus.
Presidential election is on Tuesday. This is the last time we're all going to be together. Early voting was pretty good in Tennessee. In fact, I'd say very good. Early voting was good in Nashville, not as good as 4 years ago. Let's talk about this. On Election Day in Tennessee, we know Trump is going to do well in this state. Jasper, if he wins, he could tap a bunch of people that are members of our congressional delegation to take jobs perhaps with his administration and cause a bunch of open seats to be in play.
Yeah, he could. There's always that possibility. So I'm just gonna stick it there. I'm gonna put a pin in that one. But we could see some congressional members actively seek other seats.
Well, let's say Mark Green. If he taps Mark Green, who may or may not have just won re-election, boy, you'd have a candidate who just been running.
Secretary of Army, because I think what he promised Robert F. Kennedy, maybe Health and Human Services and USDA.
Or Homeland Security.
So yeah. So
Yes, and Green was the chairman of the House Homeland Security Committee.
But with some of the latest.
If the Democrats didn't win that seat in Congress, they'd get another bite at the apple potentially almost immediately thereafter.
Yeah, right. Yes. Yeah.
Because it would be a special election.
Yes.
It would be a special election. And so, I think that some of these people will probably be out because I think we have to look at the overall picture and like what congressional seats we're going to, the Democrats will be picking up across the country and other states. So there are several seats in New York that the Democrats will probably win and
affecting the overall number and control of Congress.
Right. And if they're in a 1 or 2 vote margin, and let's say that Democrats do take over, win the House, it's less likely that they will shift, take a member of Congress from here, to keep that numbers.
It's interesting, though. You think about somebody like Bill Hagerty, for instance, a U.S. Senator. He has been closely aligned with Trump. He's somebody that Mr. Trump might tap to be his chief of staff, which could, open up a Senate seat, which could open up a congressional seat.
Yeah, and he was actually, I think, the former ambassador to Japan.
He was.
If I'm correct. So he has already had a job in the Trump administration. But, I would expect there to be a lot of people from Tennessee in a potential future Trump administration. And that, scrambles the whole field for people in our state legislature and upward mobility, So I think people are very ambitious, Republicans, at least in Tennessee, as far as getting to Congress or in the administration. So you never know.
I'd be surprised if Republicans aren't talking about it. I mean, are they? You hearing people?
I think they're definitely talking about it.
I mean, you have to think about it.
But I just think, so I would say in this election, I don't think things are going to shift that much, but I could see, we have the governor's race coming up, right? And we have, lots of people have put their hats in the ring. I think that could shift depending on if Trump wins, if he doesn't, and where that's going to move. But I think that's where we should keep our eye on, is that upcoming election, not
Well,
right now.
we talked about John Rose, I guess preparing maybe to launch a gubernatorial campaign. If Donald Trump wins, if he tapped a U.S. senator, maybe John Rose would think, well, maybe a U.S. Senate seat rather than the governor's office. I don't know. What do you? Which of those is more attractive?
I think John's wanting to come closer to home rather than continue to travel to Washington.
Okay.
Bill Hagerty's been a friend of mine for 30 years. We talk regularly. I think if Trump wins, he is almost certainly going to get asked to be Secretary of State, which again would start that domino approach and open up the Senate. Now, the Senate would not be a special election. Bill Lee would appoint somebody to serve for the next 2 years.
To fill the unexpired term, yeah.
I've talked with several folks who are particularly Republican conservatives who are concerned that Lee would appoint a Republican in name only, a moderate to liberal Republican to fill that Senate seat. I've been assured that is not going to happen because he got burned by Donald Trump calling him a rhino. He's trying to re-earn his conservative credentials, so he'll try to pick a conservative, and maybe that would be a John Rose or somebody else. I think the other thing is that I'm hearing some rumblings that some people are encouring Bill to run in the governor's race, which would really
I have heard
change
that
things.
as well. Just in the last 7 days, I heard this.
That he's more of an executive type rather than a go cast a vote guy. And if he jumped into the governor's race, Trump would clearly endorse him. It would open up that Senate seat in 2 years, depending on who they pick from Bill Lee to fill it. But it would change the dynamic if he decided, I want to be governor instead of a senator.
Now, I saw this very same scenario play out when Ned McWhorter was governor and Al Gore, went to the White House with Bill Clinton, and the governor had an opportunity to appoint someone for a couple of years. And my recollection is that he sent Deputy Governor Harlan, I want to say Harlan Howard,
to be a placeholder.
Yes. So we've seen that play out before, but it's a lot of power for a governor to put somebody in the most powerful governing
But the
body on the
congressional
planet.
seats, those are special. I mean, you
Yes.
have a special election, the governor calls that, and the governor's race, whoever's in it, starts November 6th if it haven't already started.
It's they say interesting times. Now let me ask you this.
Definitely.
I've speculated that the Democrats are trying to make some inroads, and you've mentioned it a number of times. You've got to win somewhere, but even if the Democrats are not able to topple some of these big congressional seats thereafter, they're going to do better than they did last time. Is there a big picture game where maybe next time you get the National Party to throw some millions in there and you flip a seat?
You're talking about at the state legislature?
Yes.
Or
No, I'm
Congress?
talking about on the state level in terms of members of our congressional delegation.
Sure. Well, I think no matter who or what the situation is, we're always trying to build on each cycle, right? Because voting and mobilizing Democratic voters is like muscle memory. You have to teach people to get into the habit of showing up because they have a Democrat on the ballot, and so you just have to get people in that habit, and that's something that takes several cycles to get to. So 2028, 2030, I think we're going to be very highly competitive with a lot of these congressional races, especially because they're so gerrymandered. So you're taking the Democratic vote share and you're splitting it up. So the more we continue to have strong Democratic candidates run in these cycles across the state, the more our voters are going to remember that they are supposed to be voting in these elections, and you're going to see more Democrats turn out. And then in 2030, Tennessee is going to get an extra congressional seats, and that's going to be fascinating to see what the legislature does.
They
with
redraw
that
the line.
extra seat.
Again,
They're going to split Davidson County
And
four
believe
ways.
you me, both parties are thinking, well, downstream for that. I've got to squeeze in a commercial break, but we have more to come. You're watching Nashville in Focus on Fox 17.
You're watching Fox 17 News, Nashville in Focus.
Just about every election, a couple of days before we all go to vote, some candidate or another is alleging that you or your subordinates are stealing my signs. There was such a charge that made the news a couple of days ago in the 50th, which is a House district seat that Bo Mitchell has, and it sort of stretches from Bellevue all the way around the county edge up to Goodlettsville, not far from where I live. Now, Jennifer Frensley Webb is the Republican candidate. My question is Bo Mitchell's seat at risk? Do Democrats feel that she's got a shot? What are you hearing? What are you thinking?
Well, Bo hasn't had a competitive race since 2018. So the district has trended more to the left since then. So I think we're in a very good place in Bo Mitchell's race. I don't have any concerns at all. Jennifer Frensley Webb should be concerned, though, probably.
What are you hearing in Republican circles? This is obviously a seat that some GOP members think, hey, we could pick up a seat in this district.
I don't think it's going to really affect this race, but I mean, come on, every candidate. I mean, I remember 2 years ago where Robbie Starbuck had trackers on his signs back in the day. I mean, every race has this thing. And they're losing signs, they're stealing signs. I don't think it's going to cost a race, in my opinion.
I think it's funny, though. I talked to, I didn't personally talk to Jennifer Frensley Webb, but I did talk to Bo Mitchell to get his reaction before we did the story. You probably hear this every time, too.
Yeah, it does. And it's unfortunate that people, are try to get on the news and try to make news because they don't have a platform. So they'll say that, oh, well, somebody stole my sign or somebody, did something and, in hopes to try to garner, a little bit of press. But as Dakota said, I think Representative Mitchell has done his job. He has represented his people. He is there. He's seen. And
he's definitely been seen and heard. I mean, when the House session's going on, he is a prominent Democratic voice from Nashville who is seen and heard.
Yes, and I do believe that his constituents will send him back.
What are you thinking, Steve? I don't know Jennifer Frensley Webb, but you've got a Republican, trying to take a seat away from the Democrats in Nashville.
Nashville's still tough, and I think again as we look, if that voter turnout in Nashville is a little bit lower, that may give a shot. But I think Nashville's still pretty blue, and sign stealing. I think George Washington didn't have to deal with that because he was unopposed, but I bet Jefferson and Adams were stealing each other's signs like crazy. I know when I ran for Congress 30 years ago, ours were getting stolen, and I told people, look, they think I'm going to win, they're going to be collector's items.
That's what it is. I can't believe it's been 30 years. I covered your run for Congress against then Bart Gordon. I don't remember because the numbers of the districts have changed sometimes. I don't remember what it was at that time, but I sure remember that race, and it wasn't long after that because that was at a time where Tennessee was turning from where the Democrats had control of everything, including that seat, to you were maybe one election too soon, or you might have done some time in Congress.
About a half point.
Yeah.
So close.
I said done time. It sounds like it sounds like a prison sentence. You may have done time in Congress.
That's what Congress would be. I had a friend who was looking at running for a race, and he said, we're going to have to, I said, well, you're going to have to form a legal defense fund. He goes, what, you think I'm going to cheat or steal? I said, no, you'll kill one of those guys. We got to get ahead of the curve.
Guys, we've got one more segment to go here on Nashville in Focus. Stay tuned. We've got one coming up. We'll be right back.
You're watching Fox 17 News, Nashville in Focus.
It is generally considered, certainly among the GOP, that Tennessee is Trump country. However, a lot of Democrats in our state have been dispatched to other states working for the Democratic ticket, believing that they can make some friends in other states. Jasper, I know last weekend you were in North Carolina with the House Minority Leader Camper, and I understand she's on the road again, this weekend.
Yes, so we'll be watching the show this week from Pennsylvania, from Philadelphia. Yes, the leader, as most people know, she is a 20-year Army veteran, retired Army veteran, intelligence officer. She's also served on several boards, so she's very well known amongst in other states, in various states, from her time as being president of the National Foundation of Women Legislators. So now she's on the board of the state Legislative Leadership Foundation and whatnot. So she, along with other members, have been asked to travel around the country. And so last week we did Souls to the Polls in North Carolina, where we galvanized people to go vote. They had early voting on Sundays in North Carolina. And so, which was very interesting, polls over from 1 to 6 p.m. on Sunday, so people can go after church.
Yes.
And so we'll be doing the same thing in Philadelphia. And so we're going to see if we can bring it home, if we can, use some of our talent here in Tennessee to create friends, as you said, because if we can help elect Vice President Harris the president, then, of course, she will remember that, Leader Camper was one of those people who were out there traveling.
Sure. I would imagine that the National Party probably calls the state and local party on the regular, asking for people. Have you ever done some of that, campaign in other places? I know you went to the convention.
I was at the convention. Yeah, no, there are a few legislators at the state level who are organizing for the vice president and sending buses to swing states that, like Jasper said, North Carolina and Georgia. So it's maybe not as large scale of an operation as you would think, but we have been in contact with some some buses
But-
and getting hotel rooms.
And we're also
and
taking
whatnot.
care of home. So, this weekend we'll be doing an event for Shondell Brooks at District 60. We'll be going up to Clarksville, to do an event for Representative Ronnie Glenn before heading to the airport. So we got to take care of home first, because there are some seats that we still need to defend. There are a couple of seats that I think that we can pick up, here in Tennessee. And so she's been, so our people here have sort of been doing double duty. So they've been campaigning here at home and then packing up overnight and going, into another state to do what they can there. And they said we can sleep on Wednesday, November 6th.
Well,
so
you're right. I mean, there is no tomorrow.
So close.
Now, you mentioned that Old Hickory seat, and that's the one that Darren Jernigan, a Democrat, has had for a number of years. He's now working in the mayor's office. You mentioned Shondell Brooks is running in that. Chad Bobo is the Republican in that race. Do you think a Republican can take that, from, the Democrats?
I think it's tough. I mean, Davidson County is still blue, and it's kind of like you look at the rest of the state. Kamala Harris will carry Shelby, she'll carry Davidson County. Other than that, the pickings are going to be slim, and we'll see if that Trump wave helps, fend off some of these races that Democrats are trying to pick up. And, and Tennesseans are doing the same kind of thing you guys are doing. They're traveling to Georgia, they're traveling to North Carolina, door knocking. Because again, we're blessed that we don't have a competitive state because, Pennsylvania, I think they've got $500 million that's been spent on the Senate race there. Every ad is an attack ad. We are blessed we don't have to, suffer through that.
Well, now, I'm in the television business, and we're not offended by these ads because we think it might give you an opportunity to get some insight on the candidates.
But there are also congressional and state house seats. So, like, for instance, Pennsylvania State House is only have a one seat Democratic majority. So,
Going to have to leave it there. That is our time. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for watching. See you next week.